Hi, welcome to Relief Beyond Belief, Exploring the World of Natural Healing. I'm your host, Alexandra Barker, and today we're going to be talking about yoga and yoga philosophy. And my guest is Glenn Mifsud from Still Point Yoga Bed and Breakfast in Picton. Glenn, hi, welcome to the show. Nice
Greetings.
to see you.
It's great to see you.
And Glenn, you were my yoga teacher, so it's a real treat to have you on the show. You're a teacher of yoga teachers, yoga master, as it were. So how long have you been teaching yoga?
About 15 years. I turned 40 and quit all my Toronto connections and moved down here and started taking and teaching yoga. And it's been a beautiful, it's been beautiful ever since. It's like living your dream.
Wonderful. And it is a beautiful spot you have there, where I took my training as well. It was certainly a very nice experience. So what drew you to yoga originally? That's quite a change to go from living in the city, and I know a lot of people undergo changes at 40.
Well, it's just living your own life. There's something inside you that keeps saying, is this all there is, or I'm not satisfied, and sooner or later, if you choose, and some people don't choose, but if you choose to start listening to your higher self and only doing things that are good for your spirit and suit yourself, it's not egotistical, but it's just listening to your higher self. Some people never live their own life. They live the life that's laid out for them by society, and Carl Jung calls it the process of individualization. Either you do it at age 40 biologically, it just happened to work exactly the way he described it. So at exactly age 40, I quit everything and started living my own life. And I still clean the washrooms and cut the grass, but you know, the big things are what feeds my soul, and so I do that, and it's been a treat. Work is a blessing then, rather than a drudgery. So I feel very fortunate that somehow I made that choice.
Well, you made a beautiful choice. You're right on the water, and you actually built it yourself. And people can check out your website and see this big, beautiful stone home that you created out there in Still Point, and that's a lovely name, Still Point. How would you explain that name?
Well,
why did you choose that?
I took T.S. Eliot at university. I have a degree in religious studies, and somehow we were studying T.S. Eliot, the Four Quartets, and he studied Eastern thought as well. He uses some Sanskrit words in his poems, but like Shanti, which means peace. But he calls it the still point of the turning world, and this is a yogic and Buddhist and Eastern concept where it doesn't matter what's going around, you have to find a still point outside of the ebb and flow, the fluctuations of samsara, they call it, of suffering. So there is a still point in everybody else. It's like Christianity, the kingdom is within. Well, that still point is the kingdom within, and there is practices, yogic practices, tantric practices that help you get in touch with the inner peace. In Christian terms, the peace beyond all understanding, and so the goal is to try to get in touch with that, and you do that by practicing. Now, in the runners or the athletes would call it the zone. You know, you find a spot that's outside of the ebb and flow of the moving. So you can't lose the race when you're in the zone. Or Gretzky said he played in slow motion. You know, hockey. You know, it looked awfully fast to me, but for him, he was in the zone, so it was slow motion. Now the jazz people, they call it the groove, you know, so they're in the groove. I mean, they're just outside of the ebb and flow, and maybe a sweet spot in tennis, you know, so there is a spot in everybody, and everybody's experienced it, but the yogis explored it for thousands of years and tried to find a way to get you outside, no matter what. So you're never a victim because you found that peace that is not even related to what's going on outside. You can find it in samsara, so you can find nirvana in samsara, you can find peace in the fluctuations, because it's just no good if it's sitting on my deck. Everybody loves the world sitting on my deck, but try to do it on the Don Valley Parkway or waiting in the lineup, and that's the challenge. So we have practices, hatha yoga, sitting meditation, to get you there, and that's the dance. That's what we do at Still Point Bed and Breakfast, is explore the traditions and the techniques to get you to the still point. That's why we call it the still point. It's a great, it sums it all up.
Oh, that's a beautiful name.
Yeah, thank you.
Very beautiful retreat. And so yoga then, a lot of people, especially these days, I mean, you have Madonna doing yoga and well, she's into all kinds of things.
Now she's into Kabbalah too.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. So I think a lot of people have found that it is a great way to get and stay fit, and it can be a very gentle workout, or it can be a very energetic workout, but it's not just exercise, is it? And actually the postures are really not what yoga is all about.
It's very little what's the postures is a very small part, but in the West, we need something to hold on to, and the postures are very physical. Therefore, they're all clinging to that, and very nice clothes, and you know, the original yogis. It's about a meditation, an active meditation. There's only and so done that way, you have a whole new spiritual dimension, and you get all the benefits of meditation. Done just as a physical exercise, you get something. So we'll start there. And if somebody starts at the yoga mat just for physical fitness, it's not a bad thing. It's just that, you know, you're just exploring 5% of what it's all about. I mean, it's all about getting you peace and freedom. Yeah. So it's done as calisthenics, you don't get you get very small part of that. So you're missing most of the trip. But it's still, there's a theory that all yoga mats lead to the altar. So sooner or later, it gets to be a spiritual experience. So you can't condemn wherever people start is where they start, and that's a good thing. It's a good thing to hit the mat. Something's going to rub off.
Well, I think that's true, because in all yoga classes, or most I would believe, should have a component with the breathing and the relaxation, which can be a big challenge for people to lay there and do nothing for 5 minutes, but that's a really important skill to learn. And the breathing, or the pranayama, and maybe you can elaborate on how our breath can actually take us deeper into a spiritual practice in yoga.
Well, most traditions, or most languages, breath and spirit are the same word as to aspirate in English, or pneumena in Greek, and ruah in Hebrew. You know, so it's so they're all basically there's a connection between breath and spirit, between your emotions and your higher self and your body and your breath. So if your child is having a temper tantrum, you say, breathe, take a few conscious breaths, because it slows everything down. So that is one connection. The other connection is our vital energy comes from our breath, but it's not the oxygen. In Eastern traditions, it's the prana. In yogic traditions, it's the ki in Japanese, and it's but there's other names for the energy. So you can get that through proper breathing, and we're supposed to have a warehouse of energy stored here in the dantian, or the ahara, and you're supposed to be able to free that up, and which you can, of course. It's so we have breath work. There are years of technical knowledge as it comes into the yogic tradition. People have been practicing and finding out what frees the energy, what gets the energy flowing in the body, what brings the energy from the outer world into the body, and it's pranayama is the most important practice. And some yoga teachers don't teach it at all, or some add it years later, and we teach a gentle version at the very beginning, so people can explore a little bit of the most powerful practice.
I think that's a very good idea, because even on the physical level, you know, we don't usually do the deep breathing. We usually do shallow breathing with the top third of our lungs, and we're just not getting enough oxygen. We're depriving our cells of oxygen. So, I mean, just on that physical level, it should
seeing East met West, we have now they can measure the oxygen in the blood, and the oxygen level just keeps, they can just measure it with pranayama, just so you get saturated with oxygen in your blood. So this is what the West is adding to the practice. Now they can prove, they can measure brain waves, and they can measure oxygen, and they can tell you what state of mind you're in with whether it's alpha or beta or delta or theta waves. So you get this is the strong part of the West, our science. So now
Yeah.
they're applying it to yoga, and they're finding you can support your yoga practice with Western science and without losing anything. It's as long as you don't reduce it to pure matter and reduce it to atoms or frisky dirt, frisky matter. So they can complement each other, East and West. Yeah.
Well, it's nice that science is kind of catching up with them.
Well, yeah, everything the
Proving
yogi said, science sooner or later proves, and they'll even measure prana someday. It just happens. You need a lot finer tools. I think they have a type of photography now where you can measure auras, and so it's a
Carillion.
yeah, Carillion.
Yeah.
I can never remember that name, but I think it's so that it's happening. So you can measure your prana that way. So, and it's a nice that they will come together.
Well, it does have all these wonderful components to it, and we'll talk maybe a little bit more about the yamas and etc. But what is the goals? What's the goal of yoga? Like, why?
To get you out of suffering, whatever that means, to get you to freedom, and basically freedom and immortality. Now that's a little strange, but it's a little esoteric maybe for this conversation. But freedom is easy. Immortality is a little harder. But freedom is not having to react to the world. You sort of have a buffer if you're a yogi, so if something's going wrong, you can take a breath and choose to do what you want to do, and that's freedom in yogic terms. It's not freedom to fly, or there is that part of it, but that's a very really esoteric, strange part, which I know nothing about. But freedom is freedom of choice in life rather than be a victim. There's a survey about in North America, basically United States, how many people thought they were victims, and the answer was 300%. So we live in and for a yogi, there's no victims. You create through karma your own life, and the victimhood is something that's you can't be a victim and a yogi at the same time. So you give up, and you work and you change the world, but you change it not from a victim mentality. You change it from freedom, and it's a whole different energy when you don't blame your next door neighbor for your life, and that's.
Well, that's. Hi, you're watching Relief Beyond Belief, and we're talking with Yoga Master Glenn Mifsud, and we were just about to tackle the topic of karma. I think some people might be familiar with it, but we'll just start off with a definition. What is karma to you?
Oh, okay, tough one. I have many definitions, but I'll just approach it by karma is basically thinking that this moment in time is somehow related to the one that just passed, So whatever comes forward is your karma, So it's not that hard to grasp. But somehow
it's like cause and effect, really.
Yeah, there's a cause. Somehow this moment in time is caused by the last moment in time, and you just extrapolate that way back to, in yogic terms, other lifetimes. But you can just take it back to your childhood, or you don't have to go to other lifetimes if that's too big a concept or something you don't believe in. But somehow you have to think that from apple seeds you get apple trees, and you get apples. There's a relation, You just or in Buddhist terms, it starts with a thought, and then it becomes a concept, and it becomes an action, and it becomes a habit, and it becomes your character. So everything is fairly. Nothing works that linearly, but it's more. It's more swirly. It's more swirly, but so everything is related to the past moment. So
that means if I get, if something bad happens to me, it's because I did something bad?
There's a cause. Doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean Jesus was a mass murderer. No, because he got crucified. It could be that he's big enough to take on the sins of the whole world. But it could be there to teach us about compassion. It's not quite that linear. if you have cancer, did something bad. Doesn't mean that. Doesn't mean that at all. It means that you may be wise enough to teach me compassion. There's something that can come out of that, and something caused that. It could be because we're polluting the world, or we're eating really bad food. And it's there's no blame. There's no blame in yogis. Other people are for blame. Yogis are just like, there's a relationship between this moment and the one before. And nothing happens without that relationship. In shell drakes, morphogenic fields, or you make grooves. New age, they call it tapes. You put a tape on and you make a tape, so you got to change the tape if it's a new age. Yogis just call it karma. Whatever something brought you to this moment. It just didn't happen ex nihilo, out of nothing.
Even if it seems sort of out of the blue, like if you're just in a fender bender or something, and you weren't doing anything wrong.
That's the hard one.
Somebody rear ends you or something.
That's the hard one.
Yeah.
Where the accidents come from, whether there are accidents. For ultimately, the extreme version of karma is there's no accidents. So somehow we built the cars, society built the cars, and you put yourself there. But that's a little. It's easier, and Buddhists call proximal karma. If you eat bad junk food, you get a junk body. We can all sort of understand that. But when it goes to generations and generations, it's rebirth and rebirth. It's really hard to get our minds around that. And there's a bit of a faith thing on that. But unless you're a great deep meditator, then you can explore some of that. But for most of us, it's easier to see that if you drink too much, your liver's going to get shot. We can sort of see the causal relationship.
You're going to wake up with a headache.
Yes, all science is in the physical world. All science is based on causality. I mean, something's causing the other thing. Sort of a pinball universe. You hit this ball against the other ball, and it's going to move, and then they can predict the way it moves. Well, karma is a little harder to predict because you got 50,000 variables coming in, and somebody wants me to tell them why little Johnny's ill. Well, it's just too many variables, but there's nothing without a cause.
Yeah.
And that's the interconnectedness of it all, too. I mean, that's a really nice concept.
Right, because in yoga, well, actually, the word means, to join, right? And it's about coming together with the. Well, you explain it. You're the yoga master. But the non-duality, about how we are all interconnected, and really, the energy is sort of.
Yoga means union, and Hatha means union. Means sun and moon. The union of the sun and moon. The union of Shiva and Shakti, and an esoteric version of Hatha. So it's all about coming together, and all the separation is the lie. As they call that Maya. They call that the illusion that you're living in is the lie you're living in. Well, because we see the world, we have a bifurcating mind. We separate. You're over there, and I'm over here, and that's the lie. That's the lie that. We're living, and the illusion we're living. But yoga means union, and it means at some level of consciousness you'll see the interconnectedness between you and I, and I and the tree and the animal and the earth, and so that's a spiritual. That's what mysticism means. There's no mystic experience without the feeling of being at one. That's at oneness. We all hear that atonement, at one ment. Well, that's the goal, and the goal of yoga is to find that mystical experience, which is not even an experience in a sense, because it'll become who you are, and so it's just part of who you are. So you can't even steal an apple from the green grocer because it's stealing it from yourself. I mean, there's a morality built into that at one-ment. There's you can't hurt your neighbor. It's who you are. The greatest wisdom of the yogic text, the Upanishads, is Tat Van Asi, thou art that. Yeah. This is 2,000-year-old wisdom, that thou art that art thou, are thou that. It doesn't matter what order you put it in, it means you are it, and it is you. I mean, there's no other. The second greatest wisdom of the Upanishads is as soon as there's other, there's fear. So if you get rid of the concept of other, you get rid of fear. So you can act fearlessly in the universe, because there's no other. There's only is only you, and it's not to the ego. It's little Glenn. It's the higher self that relates to it all, not little Glenn's contracted and fearful, and he wants to grab everything and hoard it and hide it. Well, that's not what you're talking about. That's completely not what you're talking about. You're talking about exploring your higher self, which starts to break down barriers. We all break down barriers between your contracted self, the restricted small self. As soon as you love your dog or love your children or love your neighbor, or you start expanding who you are or your country, and then you expand to the universe ultimately. But it's you don't have to start with the universe. You can start by hugging a tree. You don't have to hug the universe. That's just too big a concept to start with.
Yeah.
But you hug your neighbor. That's all. That's what yoga is about, breaking down that barrier. Yeah.
Well, they sound like wonderful ideals, and certainly that would, if you were living that way, then I would think you would have very good karma, or even not to incur any karma, which I suppose would be the preferred route. So there are guidelines in yoga, sort of guidelines for living. There's
practices to get you there, and there's guidelines, which, as you say, are the yamas and niyamas, which are just, there's moral injunctions that come with the path. The Buddhists have eightfold path. The Christians may have 10 Commandments and the Decalogue, and yogis have the yamas and niyamas. It doesn't matter which one you go to. You can be a yogi and a Jew or a Christian. It's not a problem.
Right.
They all have to do with loving your neighbor. And they all not stealing, not being greedy, not trying to acquire. Studying scripture, studying your higher self. They're all. Everybody could relate to them. There's nothing really, really strange in the yogic ones. Matter of fact, I usually read the Buddhists like right livelihood and doesn't matter where you get, but without the moral injunction, you just can't do the postures and rob banks in the evening and expect to get spiritually attuned. So that you need some morality.
So it could be a very strict lifestyle with like a strict vegetarian diet and doing all the rest of it together, but it doesn't necessarily have to be.
It usually manifests that way, but not strict is a good word, but
discipline.
It doesn't have to be dour and painful. You can still celebrate life. You can still go dancing. You can still have a dog, a husband, a normal sex life, and you can. The Dalai Lama eats meat. He gets sick when he doesn't. So you can. In some tantric traditions, alcohol is allowed. It's a tantric yogic tradition, so it doesn't mean you're going to beat yourself up for the rest of your life. It means that you got to celebrate life and explore freedom, and your higher self is just a nice way of being in the world.
And I think you find more joy when you do it, and even the postures. I know I feel fantastic when I've done like a good yoga workout, and it's just because it's freeing the blockages, and it's just. Feels wonderful, and I think it does free you up for more joy in your life. Releases anger and negativity, and wouldn't you say?
And those things take, like it took 40 years for me to get angry, and it takes 40 years to get rid of it. It's just the way it works. So it's a practice. If you want to know how to get to Massey Hall, the taxi driver said practice, practice, practice. So it's a so that's why we hit the mat every day. You spend some time trying to find stillness and seeing what rolls up, and it could be anger, it could be lust, it could be greed, or it could be love. Just watch things roll up and watch them pass by, and you're doing a meditation, you're doing your yoga practice. Doesn't matter if you ever touch your toes. It's a matter of being in that moment, what arises, and that's being in reality and being in the eternal now, as opposed to being somewhere else, shopping at the Walmart while you're stretching, and then you're not doing yoga. You may get a slightly healthier body, but you're not exploring your mind, the moment, the eternal now. So it's So it's there is tools, there is knowledge. You just can't hit the yoga mat with the first video you buy and expect to know it all. It's thousands of years of wisdom.
And you don't ever have to do a headstand if you don't want to.
You don't have to do a headstand, and you don't have to touch your toes. You just have to be present and joyful, and in that moment, and feeling what's rolling up in that moment. It's perfect yoga. So we can all do perfect yoga. The West wants you to do backflips and handstands, and that's not necessary. That's fun. That's fun stuff. But you can get a lot of ego involved in that. And
I'm just getting an image of you walking. I saw with you in Lotus, like with your legs crossed, and you did a hand walk across the room in your studio. Pretty impressive.
That's the fun spot. That's the fun stuff. But that's also the ego stuff, and you have to watch that somehow the ego has to be transcended, and so you can do it to be healthy and comfortable in your body, or you can do it as for show business. And there's a lot of show business in the West. There's a lot of show business, and so long as you and your students know that that's not necessary, you know, and then a lot of the pressure goes, leaves, and you can get comfortable in your body.
And that is the whole point.